Okay, we can continue with Huff. Because that's what it says here. That's his name, Huff. James Riddle Huff. When he didn't come home that night, she called the police. The following day, the car was discovered unlocked. But James had vanished. The FBI were quickly called in, and over the next 10 years, 200 GM signed for government men were assigned to James' disappearance. Everyone was of the opinion that he had been murdered, but no one could fathom out who had done the deed or whether the body had been hidden. Theories were released and duly filled. At one point, it was thought that contact killed Charles Allen had grounded up his corpse into little pieces and had it thrown in the Florida swamp. Others claimed he had been killed by hitman Donald Tony the Greek Francos and his body buried under the giant stadium. That is him. Okay, I thought I was going crazy. It is him. People still think he's under that stadium. In 2004, James one-time friend Frank the Irishman Sheeran gave a deathbed confession pointing to a home in the suburbs of Detroit as the murder scene. More than 16,000 pages of reports are written, but whittling down the never-ending list of suspects prove impossible. After all, he's been an incredible, unpopular individual on both sides of the law. In 1982, Jimmy Huff was declared legally dead, but without a body, we'll never know if he really is. Disappearance number 6. Oh boy. Rago Gustard Wallenberg. Okay, the Swedish business diplomat and brave humanitarian. Date went missing January 17th, 1945. I am not sure how to pronounce your name. Can I just call you RW? You've sent him up for the adventure and high drama he was to face in later life, and gave him the skills that he had needed to accomplish the outstanding feats of bravery that he would ultimately be remembered for. Born in Sweden in 1912 into a wealthy academic family, young Wallenberg was given an excellent education. He traveled extensively before returning to Stockholm, where he began working for the Central European Trading Company. By 1942, he was its international director, undertaking frequent trips to Germany, France, and Hungary. During this time, Wallenberg witnessed firsthand the behavior of the... Okay, this is not going to be a fun conversation. Nazis regiment and the atrocities befalling the Hagerman Jews. Painfully aware of his own 1/16th Jewish ancestry, when U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt created the War Refugee Board to deal with the humanitarian crisis, they began searching for someone who could oversee a rescue mission for the trapped Jews. By June 1944, they had chosen Wallenberg to organize the program. With his intimate knowledge of the area, business contacts, and excellent language skills, he was the perfect man for the job. Okay. Protective passports were secretly developed and issued to those Jews most at risk, declaring them to be Swedish, thereby avoiding deportation and the wearing of yellow stars. Safe houses were rented throughout Budapest. Wallenberg had organized an expert and abduction plan that saved up to 1,000 Jewish lives, but it also painted a target on his back. Wallenberg continuously changed locations to avoid apprehension, but eventually he was tracked down. On January 17, 1945, he was called to the Soviet Deport Commissioner for Defense. He was never officially seen again, although it's known that he was transferred to Lubyanka prison cell 123. Various people claim to have seen him or heard his voice from behind closed doors, but the evidence is little more than hearsay. The Soviet-controlled Hungarian radio declared that he had been murdered in 1945, while in 1957, the Soviet government claimed he had died of natural causes in his cell back in 1947. An investigation carried out in 1991 concluded that Wallenberg had been imprisoned while under lock and key in the infamous Lubyanka concentration terminal. He had been shot. Following Stalin's death in 1953, thousands of prisoners of war were released and witnessed account surface, discovering encounters with Wallenberg in Moscow prison. A number of former prisoners have claimed to have seen him long after his supposed death. Talk of Swedish diplomat living within the walls of a Soviet prison still present. 2 independent witnesses reported seeing him behind bars as recently as 1987. In October 2016, Rollo Wallenberg was finally declared dead. The Swedish tax agency record date of his passing is July 31, 1952. It was a good date as any, but whether it's correct, who knows? I'm laughing because there is so much different dates for this poor man. Wallenberg plan had to save up to 1,000 Jewish lives, but it also painted a target on his back. Wallenberg's half-sister Nina holds a photography of her beloved brother. Did Wallenberg end his days locked away behind one of these steel cell doors? Okay, I don't know if I need to talk about this dude or not. The disappearing skyjacker is DB Cooper. I've talked about him, haven't I? Have I talked about DC Cooper? Let me know in the comments below, or wherever this is located, because I swear I've talked about him before, and he is just the most weirdest person I've ever had to go by. Okay, I'm not really sure. So, the guy who I consider the Huffman, I feel bad because the dude who is clearly Wallenberg, thank you for your service and for helping and trying to save lives back then. I don't care if you're alive now, if our family member's alive. I'm sorry if I laughed. It's just the way that the people encountered your death date was so confusing. I'm laughing because it's clearly they don't know. And hopefully maybe he got out or he told someone his name. But I mean, what happened to him was just terrible. And yeah, Jimmy Huffman, I always was told he was buried under that stadium. Was Huffman gunned down by Frank the Irishman in the Dorito house? Dorito. Detroit. And next we will talk about 30 years gone, the disappearance of Philip Cairns. Almost 32 years ago, Philip Cairns disappeared without a trace. Walking home from school, was he snatched by a predator or an obscure satanic cult? Why was he taken by a cult is beyond me.